Are we ready?
We're ready.
All right, we are gonna call the meeting to order at 5:33 p.m. Right. We have a light meeting, but let's go ahead and do roll call.
All right, Doug Mindenhoff,
Here.
Michaela Hammerson,
Here.
the Hoover here. Donna Steele.
Yep.
Natasha is not yet, and Mike and Janice are not. All right,
All right. I always make Doug do it. Dawn, do you wanna lead the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so we're gonna go ahead and kick it off with, are you okay?
Yes, it's one of the funny ones.
Can I have that chair?
And I lean forward.
I always. do.
I always get the meeting chair.
Are you okay?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and start off with the electric charger purchase on grant 35,395. It'll have some information.
yes, so aside from the cover page, so the 3 electric chargers were purchased as an equipment purchase on grant number 35395. This is at the time that we applied, it was a combination of 2 grants. You could apply for the low-no grant for the electric or low emission vehicles, or you could apply for bus and bus facilities for infrastructure. Or you could apply for a combined deal. So that's what we did. We applied for the combined deal. And at the time of execution, the lead time to receive the equipment was a topic of discussion everywhere because of the supply chain issues. And we were encouraged to order the chargers as soon as possible to ensure that they would be delivered by the time that we were ready to build. And
Just
the,
for the rest of, sorry to interrupt, but just for the members who haven't been here this whole time, can you tell them just a little bit more about that supply chain issue?
oh, sure. So in 2020, we placed orders for vehicles, and the lead time at the time that we placed the orders was about 90 days for vans and about 6 months for buses. And then 2020 and hit in all its glory. And so that the lead time turned into 2 years. So we ordered vehicles that were supposed to be delivered in 90 days to 6 months. And they ended up being delivered 2 years later after multiple price increases. But they were delayed due to supply chain issues where they couldn't get the chips to finish the vehicles or various different parts.
So they didn't have to stick with the contracted price.
They were able to increase based on it wasn't delivered in the time frame. There were, how the manufacturer will increase the price for a 24 over a 23. They passed that increase on to us. Yes, that was nice of them, huh? Yeah.
Well, seems like we have a contract,
Right, and we purchased through the state price agreement. And honestly, what they said was, you're not obligated to accept the vehicles at the higher cost. But then we wouldn't have the vehicles that we needed. So, that rock in a hard place kind of a
Right.
thing. So the chargers were delivered early. When I signed the PO for the chargers, they had stated that they could hold the chargers until we were ready to build. That we just needed to get them ordered so that they would be there and in stock. The the other piece that happened was that Proterra, the company that we were planning to order the buses through, they filed bankruptcy. And so, we had not yet signed the purchase for the contract for the buses, but we had ordered the chargers. So the bankruptcy hit, I believe it was early July. And
July of.
oh, I'm thinking that was last July, a year ago, 2023. And then, in August is when they started trying to deliver the chargers. And we delayed and, explained to them, we were not anticipating this. We don't have any place to put them. Delayed. And then one day they showed up in our driveway. I was supposed to have a call to schedule a delivery, and they were actually here delivering when I arrived at work. So we didn't have a choice to decline the delivery either. So those chargers are in our garage downstairs. So that's kind of what got us to where we are. The grant is kind of the topic of discussion tonight, because last week I received a call from ODOT. And what they stated was that the chargers were tied to the bus facilities side of the grant. And therefore they fall under the building and NEPA, the requirement that has to be met before you can do any of the groundwork. And so when I read the grant, that's not exactly what I see. So I highlighted in the copies that you guys have here tonight, and so we don't have any board members on anything, do we?
No, but we do have Jennifer and David, and yeah, I know Jennifer has some information on this too.
Oh, do you wanna, we're calling on you, Jennifer.
Okay, I can wait until you guys are done, but I have some more information about the NEPA. Arla was on a meeting today with the FTA over another issue with the NEPA. And they said that you can't even paint your outside of your facility without going through a NEPA process. So they have modified their requirements based on what we're getting from Barney, who is our NEPA rep. So I tried to see if there wasn't a chance that we could get them, switched over to just equipment. But based on all the information that Barney said today, not only are you guys on the hook, but then another transit district is also on the hook for painting the outside of their facility without getting a NEPA, which I would have never thought that you would need a NEPA for painting a facility because you're not breaking ground. And so they're kind of changing. I would like to, I'm going to try to get a show me this in writing type of thing, because it's a little disturbing to me when we have been told, well, since I started, that if we broke ground, then you were required to get a NEPA. But if they're saying that if you paint a building, you have to get a NEPA, or you have equipment, then you need to get a NEPA. And that's what he's saying. And that's what he said today. Then yeah, we're kind of on the hook. So that's the additional information that I got today, unfortunately.
Okay. So I highlighted a few things in the grant agreement on page 7. I just highlighted that the agreement can be amended or extended by written instrument signed by both parties. So it is something that can be amended depending on whether or not there's an amendment that can be done. And then if you continue on to page 12, the project description is, it is divided into 2 parts. One is building and infrastructure, and the other is bus and charging station purchase. There is nothing in the building and infrastructure statement that says anything about a NEPA, which is where you would expect to see it. But then the bus and charging station purchase repeats some of the information that is in part A under building and infrastructure, and says that the project includes planning, engineering, construction to design and build all aspects of the charging station. And it includes parking structure, including solar powered lighting and preventative maintenance building for the FTD fleet. But those are the pieces that belong in the building and infrastructure. The bus and charging station, if you flip to the next page, bus and charging station purchase under project deliverables, tasks and schedule is to purchase 3 transit vehicles, and purchase includes all equipment and supplies necessary to put the vehicle into service, and purchase 380 kilowatt chargers with cable dispenser for electric bus charging and all required infrastructure to install and prepare for charging electric vehicles. The expected order date for the charging stations was before the grant was even executed. It was December 1st, 2022. And it wasn't executed until 2023. And the expected delivery date you can see is December 15th, 2024. Had the information provided to us about the supply chain been correct, we would not have even ordered chargers until the buses were ordered, because that would still get them here before the buses were due to be delivered. So the information, there's I also spoke with an FTA representative today, and with Joseph Everline from ODOT as well. And put this out there on the table that this is what the challenge that we are running into. So they were going to enlist into a conversation, and they're going to include Jennifer and Joe both in the conversation, as well as Drew Orr, who, if I'm not mistaken, he was the one that took our applications and put them into the federal application, because our agreement is with ODOT, and then ODOT has the agreement with FTA. So the way I read this does not say that a NEPA is required to order the charging stations. And I was encouraged by ODOT to order early, you know. So I'm kind of at a loss on this one.
So it does say, what page is it on?
NEPA may be
Yeah,
required.
where it says it may be required.
Yeah, and it says that on page 12.
Thank you. I lost it.
Yeah, and I highlighted that.
Yeah, so,
Well, and I would expect that it would be required at the point that we're ready to, install the charging stations. But to order the charging stations was the surprise.
yeah.
I feel well,
Well, it says, okay, I kind of see what you're saying here with because it's talking a lot about building infrastructure, things like that. But not specifically about the purchase of the charging station. But just for the good of everybody on the call and in the room, can you talk a little bit about what the impact is of this financially for potentially, I guess, for UPTD?
so ODOT is asking for repayment of the $252,000 reimbursement. At this point, if we were to repay that in full, we would not have enough money to complete our this quarter. You know, the financial hole that we're working on climbing out of. We just walked through the budgeting process. And so in the budgeting process, we went through a lot of things with a fine tooth comb. We made changes to our service structure. We reduced service. For our fixed route services, we reduced service for our paratransit and demand response dial-a-ride services. We eliminated the medical transportation wheelchair services and made huge impact in the amount of money that is being expended on a monthly, quarterly, yearly basis. When Sherry pulled numbers most recently, looking at this is where we are. We were looking at I believe it was 127,000 to the good. If everything went perfectly this year with no major financial hits. And so if that is a true number, then we're looking at over about 130,000 just to break even. We'd be in the hole.
We
130,000.
wouldn't have enough for our operation expenses
No.
immediately.
Mhm.
So,
And that's best case scenario.
What's selling them?
well,
No,
that's what I
that's-
was just gonna ask.
That does not include selling them. If we sold them, then that eliminates our ability to move forward on the grant. So, because if we sell them and pay ODOT the money, then we have no way to purchase the chargers because they've already been purchased on the grant.
Question, trying to follow the breadcrumbs here.
Uh-huh.
And, is it someone's position, is it the ODOT's position that since in some sort of assessment, what they call a EA assessment
Mhm.
was not conducted? Therefore, you were in violation of something or the other, and it led to this.
Yeah, they're saying that because we didn't complete the environmental assessment and get approval through FTA, that we couldn't even order the chargers.
So
But
nobody's ever told you that EA was required, it said it may be required.
Well, they never said it was required to purchase the charging station
Yeah, okay.
or the buses. They said it was required to break ground for
Okay.
the building.
So they're arguing that that's, if it's a facility related to things, then you definitely need an EA.
Yeah.
And you're saying it's not a facility, it's a
Right.
piece of capital equipment.
Right.
So there's maybe the legal argument.
Well,
Yeah,
but weren't
has
they
to be
the
right.
ones who were advising you to purchase early?
Mhm.
So they advised you to do something and now are penalizing you for taking their advice. I mean, if you want to cut it down, isn't
Yeah.
that basically what's happening?
That's how it feels.
And
Yeah.
who is ultimately, I mean, who is responsible? Don't we kind of fall under their jurisdiction for being consulted to by them to be making the best decisions? I mean, so therefore, they're saying we gave you bad advice and you're gonna pay instead of taking the blame for what they did.
Well, and that's not in writing anywhere. It was conversations that were had, across the board, but it's not in writing that you should order your chargers early.
I guess we
So-
need to learn everything they tell us in writing.
Mhm.
So I guess the question is, are we able to, well, first of all, and Jennifer, maybe you can answer this. Does ODOT have the ability to appeal this decision from, and, you know, and since they're the one with the agreement technically, because of some of the things that have been raised here. And then also, what is the responsibility of UPTD to send this payment back when we're obviously looking at a situation where we are not going to have a transportation district if we don't have operation funds?
Number one, it was the FTA that told us that we could not do that. So it's not ODOT telling UPTD that they cannot do this. It's the FTA telling us that they will not allow us to have this agreement with you all if you have that. And that's what I was told from my gal that works in the finance, and she's the one that's been talking with her FTA rep. I'm not sure who you talked to at FTA, Cheryl, but that's what Susan Wilson George has been told by our FTA rep. Number two, I believe that it was Proterra that was kind of pushing you to purchase those, not ODOT pushing you to get those things in place. And you can refuse the orders if you didn't feel like that was something that was what you wanted to do. And I think that FTA would be having a pretty difficult time trying to, I mean, I can see what I can do, but the chances of them modifying what they've already told Susan. And then on top of that, you guys don't have the match. You do not have the match to purchase the buses or purchase any of the other items. So therefore, I have a feeling that the FTA is going to tell us that we need to cancel this agreement altogether because you all do not have the $300,000 or $600,000 match for the vehicles, and you do not have property, and you do not have the match for the building of the facility. So I would not be surprised if that would come down pretty soon. So something else to keep in mind. And I'm working at trying to find somebody that could possibly purchase these. And if we can, I think it's a great idea. I realize that you can't purchase anything else, but you don't have the match for the vehicles. I don't see you guys having the match for these vehicles between now and the time that the grant expires, and we will not be extending the grant. And again, I'm telling you that I would not be surprised if my next directive is that because you do not have the match and you owe this money, that we will be canceling this grant.
So can I inject something here? So the FTA is telling us they will allow us, they're telling us that they don't want to go forward because, is it because there was no EA assessment done? Is
Yeah, it's
that
actually called a NEPA, NEPA, NEPA.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's just follow along with that path. Okay, so now the arguments can be made. Whether or not that's appropriate to state that, because there's an argument in terms of whether or not that is a piece of capital equipment or is it a piece of facility, or is it related to facilities? So it's
Again,
So-
I think it comes down to the fact that you guys, we could argue that, and then you guys would not have to pay this part back. And there's a possibility that they would allow us to do this. But again, you do not have the match money to purchase the vehicles. Therefore, you have these chargers that you're going to just have chargers. I don't see, even if you guys ordered the electric vehicles today, which were in the middle of 2024, I would be highly surprised if you could get them in before the grant expires December 31st of 2026.
Well, the timeline is about exactly 11 months to a year for these particular builds. So,
And are you guys have $600,000 to match the grant?
So the question about the 600,000 is, what date do you have to have that 600,000? Is it a year from now? Is it 2 years from now?
it would be by the time that we take delivery, which would be in 2026.
Well, is there anything in your mind where you could imagine a scenario where you would have a match by that time? If you wanted to think very positively is there something, could you make a case that, yeah, well, we're working this issue and that issue, and we think we're gonna have the money?
We're actually working on, I will have a better answer for you on that by the time we have our next board meeting.
Okay,
Yeah,
so it's possible. Am I speaking to Jennifer? Is that?
Yeah, Jennifer.
I'm sorry, Jennifer, that, it sounds like, when I listen to you talk about it's of your opinion that there's no way that you can have the match money. And I say, hold on, maybe, maybe not. We have to listen to you. Tell us why not. And
We would not allow you guys to purchase, we would not sign a purchase order for a vehicle unless you had the match in hand. You have to have that match because if the vehicles come in early, you would have to have that match to pay them. You have to pay those vehicles within, I believe it's 30 days or, what, depending on what the agency is. So we would not sign that purchase order without you having that match money. We knowing you that you had that match money.
Okay,
So we have a very limited time frame anyway to be able to even order before the grant is up, having that 600,000 in pocket. I mean, you're talking about a best case scenario would be the latest order would be December. And we should actually probably allow more time than that.
this time next year would
Yeah.
be,
Cause 2026.
Oh, okay. So
It
around
takes
this time
about-
next
takes
year.
About a year,
Okay.
so.
well,
So I think the question for me is, the reason why we owe ODOT right now is, or why it's being requested that we reimburse, is because the FTA is coming back and saying that this protocol was not followed. If the FTA were to reverse their decision on that, does that alleviate our need to reimburse ODOT? Is everyone good? ODOT gets their money, we have the chargers. Is that kind of where we're sitting, Jennifer, or am I understanding that wrong?
If there was a possibility of them doing that, I don't see that happening. Because they're saying that this was done, we did it as a pre-award. ODOT did it as a pre-award. Partly because you guys had gotten those early and you were in need of that money. And so we did it as a pre-award instead of, because this agreement is not fully executed through the FTA yet. And so we did it as a pre-award to allow you guys to have that funding, because it was my understanding that you needed that funding to continue operating back in October. So that's what we did. The money, I'm going to have to double check with financial services to see, but I mean, they were at the point where they wanted to call the grant. They want to cancel it. So they were going to be requiring this no matter what. Just because you guys do not have that match money in place and ready to go. And I can see what I can do, but it doesn't look great right now from what I've gotten from the financial services folks. And again, I don't know who you talked to, Cheryl, at FTA. If it was our rep, who you talked to, because you said you talked to somebody at ODOT and to FTA, and I don't know who you talked to at ODOT either.
Joseph Eberlein is who was on the call, and Thomas Benetti, the gentleman that we've been working with on the NEPA process. And he was going to talk to his representative and have a combined call that included you and Joseph to ensure that everybody was on the same page. And figure out, is this or is this not the end of this grant?
So if the grant was canceled, what does that mean, that the grant is canceled? That means ODOT is canceling the grant with the FTA? correct?
Yes, yes.
Because technically, we haven't received any grant money. We've received a pre-award from ODOT.
You received the
$250,000.
reimbursement request, yeah, the $250,000 reimbursement request.
Okay, and is that different from the grant?
Nope, that's part of the grant.
Okay, so,
Essentially, they reimbursed us, but now they can't get their reimbursement from the FDA.
okay.
Hmm.
Right. So, if we're just sort of trying to problem solve. If we don't think that we're going to be able to get the buses or complete the match, which we can talk more about that in a minute, but, if we are to sell these charging stations, number one, who can we sell them to? Proterra is out of business, correct? So,
Well, they were bought out by Phoenix Motor Car.
so number one, are they willing to return them?
Because they split the company into 3 different divisions.
Hmm.
And a different company bought the charging division. So they're now, Proterra was bus, battery, and energy. And each one of those departments was split out and sold to different companies.
So if we sell these chargers, they are now charging stations that, do they have support? Do they have, you know what I mean? Like, is there any warranty? Is there, you know what
Spare
I'm
parts.
I'm trying to say? So
Yeah.
we're,
So somebody, if they're purchasing them from us, they would be taking that risk.
and it would likely be at a significant discount.
Yes,
Unless ODOT knows of a buyer.
Well, and our VTD has expressed interest, but we don't know at what level that will be.
I thought our last meeting you stated there was another south of the South County, is that what you're talking
Yeah.
about? Okay.
Oh, yes, our VTD, Rogue Valley Transportation.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes,
And do you think they're still interested or possibly?
I talked with Nick briefly this morning and I'm forwarding him the specs.
Well, I think you're, like Michaela said, I think it'll be at a great discount because there's no support. There's nobody there.
Enough to bill us.
I mean.
Yeah, well, that's what, I mean,
Yeah,
a little help is better than no
Right.
help, kind of, if you're, you know, you're kind of we're sitting in an ugly position because we don't have a lot of leverage, you know, but
So
we have to have a good salesman.
Jennifer, is there any possibility of ODOT sharing sort of this debt with us where, you know, we basically give up the charging station, sell them wherever? But is there a possibility of the rest of the reimbursement being forgiven, from, you know, for UPTD?
I have no idea. I would highly doubt that, but that would be a question I could ask.
Okay, who makes those decisions?
That would be the finance, probably the division administrator and the finance manager.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one thing that I was asking and I haven't gotten an answer back was if there was a possibility of you guys making payments on them. But again, if we can find a buyer, that would be the ideal situation.
Do you have anybody else in mind besides RVTD?
At this point, no, but I haven't, we have several people that are doing electric and there is a possibility there could be somebody different.
So you said that there's another system that is in the same situation?
Yes, not this exact same situation. They had painted a building and I guess they're gonna end up having to pay back the money for their, yeah.
Are we limited to selling them to someone in only the state of Oregon, or are there other transit agencies like that we could. So,
South.
No, I don't think it would be limited to just Oregon. No.
Let me just talk, let's go back to the fact that you're not getting, you have these chargers, but there's no company to support these, even if you used them.
I think,
You've used them here.
yeah, I
there's-
think it's Volvo that bought the charging.
I mean,
so technically, we should still
Yeah.
have support through them.
you would have support. I mean, I thought the entity was dissolved in there, when it went bankrupt or whatever. Is it still, is it or is it not dissolved?
So I haven't talked with the energy portion of,
Okay.
because that part of that part of the process was complete. Yeah,
I think it's it's possibly a breach of contract. If they sold you a piece of equipment. When you bought it, it had a warranty that goes with it. Now the company dissolves itself and saying they're gonna walk away from it.
I can check in.
They believe that easily wins a win in court. And if that was communicated to them through some counsel, I think they would have a come to Jesus moment and would have to. So in other words, you got some cards you have to play here. We have to talk about that, but think about that, but let me just go back to summarize. First, the FTA is telling us they will not allow us to have this agreement. And so my big question is why, and I go back to, there wasn't an EA done. Therefore, you didn't follow the NEPA qualifications. Okay, that's element one. Element two is they want to cancel because they have no confidence that we have any matching funds or will have any matching funds.
That's
Well,
ODOT that wants to cancel.
Yeah, that isn't, that's, okay, their position, but the fact is. You have to allow this entity to have time to come up with matching funds, and is there a drop dead date? You can't just cancel, because we think you don't have a possibility, therefore, we're not going to engage this relationship we had. They're just walking away from it, and that doesn't seem fair. So I don't know. How to, who should be negotiating this with these, but somebody should be talking to the FTA and saying, number one, there's no EA required because our position is that it's not facility related. Okay, the other thing is, and number two, we may get matching funds. It doesn't look good right now, but we may, and are we not allowed to have some sort of a time frame to develop those matching funds, maybe 6 months from now, I don't know. But that stops the carnage right now. They can't do anything right now. It seems like people want to do something right now. You want to cancel it.
Yes,
And that's, I think, premature before you give all of us a time to develop a backup plan.
I
Right?
think the concern that, and I'm not going to speak for ODOT, so Jennifer, you can correct me. But I think what the concern is the longer that we hold on to these charging stations,
Mhm.
the more the more they depreciate, essentially. I like your idea about breach of contract, and I think we should be exploring how to get our money back from this company that did not fulfill their obligation to us.
Mhm.
But Jennifer, is that the reason why ODOT wants us to sell these right now? Is it the depreciation factor, or what is the main driving factor?
Number one, because we did a pre-award, the agreement with FTA is not finalized. And so we did a pre-award and we're on the hook for the money that you guys purchased these items. FTA told us that they needed to have a NEPA. And that they would not reimburse if the NEPA was done prior to the time that you guys purchased these. So I have a lot of information I'm going to take back to my supervisor and the finance manager. And then I think probably what we're going to have to do is set up a meeting with you and Cheryl and And then you could bring the information back to the board.
Okay. And then there is no possibility of doing a retroactive NEPA? They
Nope.
they won't even consider, I mean, it seems sort of harsh, you know, like if there isn't an actual issue with the purchase, why wouldn't they retroactively look at it and determine if, you know, it was okay to purchase?
Mhm.
Because you have to have the NEPA in place before you purchase anything. That is a requirement. That's part of the reason why you guys can't utilize the property that you have. You had to have the NEPA done before you purchased. That's just the way it is, unfortunately.
So
And so
the,
was that communicated to the folks here that they had to have that in place before they placed this order, or?
no.
is it- No,
No, it actually states purchase 3 transit vehicles, purchase it includes all equipment and supplies necessary to put the vehicle into service, and purchase 3 chargers, etc. Expected order date, December 1st, 2022. Expected delivery date, December 15th, 2024. There was an expectation set, and the NEPA is not in that, project deliverables not mentioned in the purchase of the charging equipment.
who received these funds? Let's talk about this, the first time the money flowed. Okay, it's held at the FTA. And then it flowed down to you and you placed, in the end, you placed the order, but did the money flow to the Department of Transportation? And then?
No, they haven't received it, is my understanding.
Yes,
So our contract is with ODOT, yes,
okay,
and ODOT's contract is with FTA.
okay.
So I haven't seen the contract with FTA, so I don't know what it says that I violated in that contract. What I do know is there is something called an ALI code
Mhm.
that defines the purchase. So as you're, for me, when I create a grant application, the ALI codes auto-populate.
Mm,
So I submit something that has all of those codes that in the application. And then because I'm not a direct recipient of federal funds, ODOT is the direct recipient of
okay.
our federal funds. Then ODOT puts those grant applications into their own application, and that's the application that goes to FTA. So I don't know if the issue was actually with what I submitted. It doesn't appear to be. And I don't have the contract with FTA.
I mean, you have to have, you have to have the requirements. Or some, for doing some sort of a procurement like this, you have to have that in front of you. And all of the requirements, I mean, and it's a step down, it's going to multiple organizations. And I would think that would have been communicated to you directly. So you need a NEPA, you need this, you need that.
Well, and I knew I needed the NEPA to purchase before we could purchase the land. But I did not know that it was involved with the purchase of the charger.
So that's the little battle that might be rolling here is who's responsible for this. I still believe we should be able to work with, I like the idea of, I know it's not the standard practice, you're doing a post-agreement, EA, okay? That, and I don't know what the environmental assessment means in this regard, but just the words environmental assessment, and now you're talking about a machine that charges up batteries on a truck so that the environment is much cleaner, right? It seems to be that this would be something that would pass an EA relatively easy, but I'm not an expert, so I shouldn't assume that, that's the case.
Yeah, and the environmental assessment is being done on the proposed property. Like right now, it was probably 2 weeks ago when they started the work on it, maybe 3. So it should be done here in the next month. Just that piece of it, that's the environmental assessment that then goes to the people that are processing the NEPA. And then NEPA was defined as National Environmental Policy Act. So they take all of that information and decide whether or not you can make the purchase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It seems to me that UPTD and ODOT both were unaware of the need for a NEPA, or this pre-award would not have been reimbursed. That's what it sounds like to me, because why would ODOT provide a pre-award for this, a reimbursement, if they were aware that a NEPA was required and had not been completed? You wouldn't have moved forward with the purchase, I'm assuming, if you knew that a NEPA was required. It sounds to me that it is not clear, and whoever
Well-
brought up the fact of the contract with FTA, do we have the ability to see what the contract is to make these arguments?
Right, and the other piece of it, what Jennifer just said is, it sounds like they've changed the rules.
And if they did, then do we have some legal arguments there where, this wasn't the standard when this happened? And now the rules are being changed, midway through. Does the FTA realistically owe the money to ODOT?
That's kind of how I feel. I know that the equipment purchase, that amount I heard is different than when you're purchasing equipment that is included in the construction. That's different. There's an ALI for the construction equipment purchase, which is different than the ALI for a bus or other equipment, shelters or whatever it happens to be. So, and when we started this process, we absolutely did have the match money. And there were some mistakes made on my part, where we did not take the difference between the plan and the actual award and reduce our expenditures by that. And we know that. So we ended up expending funds that should have been held in reserve, because that's what they were dedicated for, was the reserve. We had been building that reserve from 2019 forward, from the first STIF plan. So we had, we thought we had accrued about 1.2 million in reserve, which was enough for the match money on the buses, the chargers, and the building, the land purchase and the building of the preventive maintenance facility. So,
So Jennifer, do we have access to that FTA agreement, or is that something that isn't available for us to review?
They haven't put in the application yet. We were working on putting in this application with the FTA, and they told us that we would not be able to do it because there was no NEPA for this piece. So we do not have the agreement yet with the FTA.
It's a mess.
I know. I don't know what action is there any proposed action?
if we could, have the opportunity to work through it, that's, to me, that's optimal. Um. John has a very good point, you know, that we didn't anticipate the financial situation that we're in right now. But now we are very aware of how we got here, and we've taken a lot of steps to get out of it. And we're continuing to walk through that process to go through our agreements and the projects with a fine tooth comb. We've added additional revenue sources. We have other additional revenue sources that we're looking into. And it would be nice to have the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, it could be that bigger things are overpowering all of this, and it could, you know, it could be something like their funding, the FTA is being cut, or they're making moves to
In
basically
anticipation.
cut off projects. Let's not fund new stuff. Let's just, you know, the stuff there's a high probability of success. We'll continue with those, but anything new, this would be considered new. Let's just, if you can wash your hands of it. But we should at least make them. I think, right, maybe a position paper on what you think is missing from this, or what remedies you want to, you know, install here to get to where you need to get to. And things like asking for gee whiz, never was communicated about the NEPA requirement. That's a biggie.
Yeah.
Because they might just be using this so that they can cut and run from this project. Nothing against this project, but there's probably hundreds of them around the United States, or even in Oregon, I don't know, but. So that may be what this is all about more than anything else, because it seems like they're looking for something. They got two things they're working on, is you don't have any matching money, and you didn't do the NEPA, so we're walking away.
Right, so we have kind of polar opposite things happening at the federal level and at the state level. There is this extreme push to move forward with cleaner vehicles to, you know, we want the cleaner environment, and, you know, there are deadlines set for when we're gonna achieve this, but the money to achieve it comes at the federal level from these grants. And so, you know, apply for the grant, but sorry, you can't have the grant because it does not say here the NEPA is required. It says it may be required for this project, but we knew it was required for the building and infrastructure, and it doesn't say it's required there either. So,
And if we throw that prayer out and they cancel the grant, they say no, we pay the money back, we can't finish the court.
yeah, well, they'd have to sell the charging stations, which is what they're trying to push.
But the charging stations are going to be worth pennies on the dollar,
Probably,
more
right.
than likely. So that still leaves us in a huge amount of debt and still unable to operate. So the fact is we,
Cut and run.
well, there's nothing that we can do to make it right this second. Whether we canceled the grant or not. Right, because if we sell the charging stations, we cancel the grant, we give up on everything right now. We don't have enough money to pay our employees. Then the transportation district is done. Sort of where we are. I mean, I think that we need to. You know, Jennifer said she's gonna take some of our questions back to, you know, her supervisors and other people in the finance department. Maybe there are some options available for us. I still, you know, I sort of look at this as maybe there's more than one oops that happened, and maybe there is an opportunity for maybe both of us to share some of that responsibility. And if we could allow ODOT to recover as much money as possible from these charging stations while still allowing us to continue to have a transportation district, I would love to look at a compromise like that. I just,
We don't have long to do it.
well, we have until 2026. December 2026 is when this problem really becomes a problem. But, obviously it needs to be solved earlier than that, so.
I think ODOT wanted their money sooner than later though. And,
Well,
but
I'm sure.
Yeah. I kind of been leading, it's not very business, but it seems like this has been one problem after another. And the longer you are trying to correct the problem, the
The
bigger
worse it
hole
gets.
you're gonna end up in.
Mhm.
And my gut feeling is try and find somebody to dump these on and just move on. It just seems like a business venture that's really gone south,
Oh, I agree. I don't think we're gonna probably be, I agree with Jennifer. We're probably not gonna come up with the match.
Right.
But we do have until December 2026 to figure that out technically
Right.
based off of the agreement.
But
So,
it would be it would also be wise sooner than later, finding out exactly how much these are backed by the company, what kind of warranty there is, because there should be something, like you said, legally. And then just try and find somewhere where we can get the best pennies for the dollar too, I think we should be kind of actively pursuing that route too.
agree. Well, Jennifer, we have our regularly scheduled board meeting in 2 weeks from now, and we called this meeting mostly to go over this particular issue that we knew was sort of coming to a head. I think we've kind of tossed around some good ideas and good questions, and I know you're gonna have more information for us. Are we good to just sort of leave this where it is right now until we can get some of those questions answered in the next couple of weeks?
I can check. I was instructed to try to get an answer from you guys about when you would be able to reimburse for those. So I will see what I can do. I'll try to make appointments for tomorrow with everybody. It's trying to get everybody together is sometimes difficult. And see what kind of answers I can find out. And then more than likely, I'll be trying to schedule a meeting prior to your board meeting, and then can give you some definitive answers.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, and I can join the Thursday meeting if that's when you think you would have stuff, or even, in not this week, but next week. So.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for everything. We appreciate your help and.
You're welcome.
Not
I'll see what I can do.
We appreciate you. All right, so we're not taking any action on this today. Okay, where did my agenda go? I lost it.
Service donation.
Thank you. Okay, so we are gonna move on to agenda item number 5, discuss service donation for match. That is Ben Edel. He was waiting on the line, and I'm sorry. I told you it was gonna be a lot quicker than that, so.
That was fascinating. That's all I can say.
Well, thank you for joining. Can you put the letter up that you emailed over? Is that possible?
Yes.
So Ben, do you just want to introduce yourself maybe while she's looking for that, that offer letter that you sent over to us, and let us know who you are and what you're about?
Yeah, my name is Ben Edel. I'm the managing member of Plitigy LLC, but we're a company that works in public relations and communications in the political environment. We have a partisan division, we have a governmental division, and we have a technology division. And what we're looking to do is just try to help with this funding gap and looking at causes and conditions. And obviously there's a lot that I would need to understand about where the UPTD is right now and what's really truly needed. But it sounds like we're on the verge of sort of an insolvency scenario that we need to try to avoid. And I look at things like a reinvention from a reinvention standpoint. There needs to be a lot of changes, and we need to find out how to reach those goals and how to help with the funding match that's needed, and ultimately position the organization to be able to secure the funding it needs. And a lot of that has to do with fundamental identity. And so this is the direction we went in terms of an in-kind offer for the district, because it's just so fundamental. It's such a foundation to drive every decision and to drive every communication, every outreach. And so I think that this could be very, very beneficial. It's something that we can do fairly quickly and determine sort of what next steps might be. There's a lot of services that we can offer that, as I'm listening to this first agenda item, I think there's a lot of services, a lot of capabilities that we have that can help support the solution, given the timing. And so, I think that also can be discussed. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Ben. Just so everybody kind of has a background on this too, this donation came out of a discussion that I was having with Jennifer Boardman with ODOT regarding our match. So you don't have to have, for all of your matches, it doesn't necessarily have to be money that the district's paying out. You can have donations actually be part of your match. And so if you go out into the community and you can secure donations of services or, whatever, you can use those donated services as part of your match. And considering that we're kind of in a situation right now where we don't necessarily have the funds, we do have wonderful community members who care about this district and don't want to see our services disrupted. Ben is a friend of mine, and I kind of told him about some of the struggles that UPTD is having. And he said, this is how I can help. I have a company that does these great branding things and is great at communication. And, maybe that's something that I can offer to UPTD. So that's sort of where this offer has come from. Jennifer had also really encouraged me as a board member and the other board members to get more involved in the community, that is actually a really good way for smaller districts to be able to bring in some donation matches, the funding that we need, getting our community involved. And so this is kind of the first step that I've taken to hopefully help the district. And Ben was kind enough to offer this donation. So it's something that I'm excited about. I wanted the board to consider accepting the donation of services. But do we need to make the motion to accept those?
I don't think so.
Okay,
I think it's, we can discuss it when it comes time, but we need to have like an invoice
Mhm.
that details the hours and what the end result and that kind of stuff,
perfect.
And I have examples from previously when we did advertising in kind.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
And so then my thought was that Ben really is going to be kind of a resource to you, Cheryl, where, you guys would have those conversations about, what he can do to sort of help. And so if we don't need to make a motion to accept a donation, you could probably just work directly with him. And this is more for just informational purposes.
that sounds great. It's nice to meet you, Ben.
Nice to meet you. I look forward to talking again soon.
Yes, we'll do that.
Thank you,
soon.
everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
All right, now we get to go into executive session. So. Where's my checklist? Oh, there.
Very last thing.
Okay. So I have to read this whole thing, correct?
Yes, for the ones that we're gonna address.
Okay. All right, so we are going to move into executive session, based on ORS 1926602I, ORS 1926608, to review and evaluate the performance of an officer, employee, or staff member. If the person does not request an open hearing, the reason for executive session may not be used to do a general evaluation of an agency goal, objective, or operation, or any directive to personnel concerning those subjects. ORS 192.6602B, to consider the dismissal or disciplining of, or to hear complaints or charges brought against a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual agent who does not request an open hearing. ORS 192.6602H, to consult with your attorney. Oh, we're actually not gonna do that one. Sorry, scratch
Okay.
that. ORS 192.6602E, to conduct deliberations with persons you have designated to negotiate real property transactions.
All right. And there's one more. Admit.
All right, we are coming out of executive session, back into our regular session, and there are no matters to take a vote on. So we are going to go ahead and adjourn the meeting at this time at 7:12 PM.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.